Welcome, Thor. Good to see you again. Annette from Sweden. So Linda, this is new to her. She's never heard of Atelier Training before. No problem. We're going to get a very thorough overview of what Atelier Training is and how it might be just what you've been looking for and you just didn't know it. So we're going to learn all about it today. Okay, so without further ado, let's go ahead and jump into our training. So welcome everybody. I'm so happy to have you here, and we're in for an hour-long journey through Atelier land, and it's going to be great. Okay, so I always ask everybody when they come to these workshops, please give yourself this moment to really learn. Kind of turn off your phone, turn off your notifications, give yourself some peace and some time to really learn about Atelier Training, and give yourself the gift of focus, because rarely, it's hard to focus in today's crazy world, but if you ever want to pursue Atelier Training, you're going to have to practice your focus, and this is a good place to start. Also, I always encourage people, I know I do my best learning when I'm cuddling a cup of coffee or tea. So, get whatever you need to be in learning mode to, be able to focus and learn with us today. Okay. Hello, everybody. So some of you may know me, some of you may not. My name is Mandy Tice, and I love Atelier Training so much. Many of you may know me because I've been giving workshops throughout the United States and actually quite a few abroad these days. So some of you I may have worked with in person in the past, especially if you're an art teacher. I do a lot of work with art teachers at art education conferences all over the country. So some of you, this might be your first time working with me. So welcome to Mandyland. You're in for some surprises, I'm sure. Okay, so basically I am an Atelier trained artist, and I'm also a licensed art teacher, and I am the director of the School of Atelier Arts. And my mission in the world is to bring technical drawing and painting skills to the world, to anybody who wants them. If you've ever wanted to draw or paint realistically, if your heart has ever had this desire, like you had an image in your head of exactly what you wanted to draw or paint, and you haven't quite been able to get it to come out the way you envisioned, Atelier Training is what you need. And that's what I do. I bring Atelier Training to people who are looking for it. And even if they don't know it exists yet, I promise you, if you want to draw and paint realistically, this is where it's at. You are in the right place. Okay, so I'd like to start off with a few questions, and please feel free to answer in the chat. So has this ever happened to you, or does this sound like you, where maybe you've gone to a museum and you've seen some paintings, like this is a Rembrandt painting, or it could be any artist that you admire, and wondered how the heck did they do it? Why don't we see art so much like this today? Why is today we see a white canvas, and that's supposed to be big, high, important art, but why is it that nobody knows how to do this today? Or how did this person learn how to do this 500 years ago? And what did they know that I don't know? Has this ever happened to you before, where you're just wow, I'm seeing this great art, but I have no idea how I can get my art up on that level? Or maybe, I'm getting a few yeses, yes. Or maybe this sounds like you're working on a painting, you're really excited about it, you have this great idea in your head, you have that spark, you have that fire, and as you're working on it, you kind of get stuck somewhere, it's not what you want it to be, but you're not sure where to go, right? How do you fix it, or what went wrong, or why is it not quite what you envisioned? There's a gap between what you've actually put on paper or on your canvas and what the outcome is and it makes you unhappy because you're trying to achieve this, but you got partway there and you haven't quite gotten all the way over yet. Yeah, I'm getting some yeses in the chat. Yes, definitely. I know that this is where I was before I found Atelier Training. And I know that a lot of my students find me because they're in this place. They're like the cat, right? They're stuck in the tree and they're not sure where to go or how to take their art to the next level. Okay, so Atelier Training might be just exactly what you are looking for if you have experienced these things. If you want to draw and paint realistically, if you are an artist, but your work isn't technically where you want it to be, Atelier Training is where it's at. Okay, and at the very end, so this series of workshops, we're giving free workshops every day this week, and it's to celebrate a launch of our new online learning program that teaches Atelier skills online. So our Atelier Painting Bootcamp, and at the end of today's workshop, I will tell you a little bit more about that. So if you are wondering, after we go through this and we learn all about Atelier Training, how can you get Atelier Training? This might be your next step. Okay, so what is an atelier? First of all, is anybody just relieved to know how the word is pronounced? Our friend from France probably knows because it is a French word, but a lot of Americans see this word for the first time and they're like, what the heck is an atelier? Atelier? I don't know. Like, what is this word? What does it mean? And why do I start to see it popping up more and more in my art feeds, right? So just really quick, I'm seeing a comment that someone's struggling with the video. If you do have difficulties seeing the video, I recommend leaving and re-entering. It'll bring you right back in and it might solve any video issues if you're having an issue. Okay, so what exactly is an atelier? Now that we know how to pronounce it, atelier, and that's actually why I called the boot camp Atelier, as with like yay, just to make it easier to remember and easy to pronounce. And also, yay is how I feel about learning how to draw and paint. That might just be like the Americana in me, but I get very excited about this. Okay, so what is it? So ateliers are specialized schools that teach realistic drawing and painting skills. And what's crazy about them is that these schools that have managed to survive and are around today, they have saved training from a near extinction from the last 100 years or so. So it used to be that everybody would go and train in an atelier in order to learn how to draw and paint realistically. But when realism fell out of favor for the last 100 years, these schools started to die out. Some of them literally died because the people running them were killed in World War I or World War II. But today, by the 1980s, 1990s, there were very, very few places left in the world where you could actually access this knowledge and this information that's been handed down from artist to artist for hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of years. So atelier training is really kind of like the collection of scientific discoveries of technical art, the collected body of technical art ideas that we have from generations of artists, all kind of bound together into one place where you can learn them. Okay, actually, before we go into this, I just want to talk a little bit more about ateliers. So one thing that I want to point out to you is that Michelangelo or Leonardo da Vinci or any of these other artists, they didn't wake up. Leonardo da Vinci did not wake up one day being like, I'm going to paint the Mona Lisa. Poof, here's the Mona Lisa. That did not happen. Da Vinci trained in an atelier for 10 years to learn the skills he needed to eventually help him paint the Mona Lisa. Rembrandt didn't wake up painting like Rembrandt one day. He trained in an atelier for many years to learn his skills. And if you look at any of what we consider the old master artists, they weren't self-taught. They trained with masters that had more knowledge than they did, inherited that information, and then built upon what was already known in art to create truly original works. Okay, so what is the training like? Let me know in the chat. Has anybody here had any experience with atelier training? Has anybody been to an atelier or taken a workshop at an atelier before? I always love to know like kind of where people are. So I'm seeing a few no's. So if this is your first time with atelier training, it's really exciting. I will never forget when I first learned atelier training existed. I thought someone like they might as well have sent me an owl telling me I got into Hogwarts. I was like, you mean there's this magical place that if I just go and study really hard for a few years, I can achieve this thing that I've always wanted to achieve my entire life? It felt so magical to me to learn about ateliers for the first time. Okay. Wow. So Meryl's actually trained in atelier for 7 years, and it truly is the best way to learn. Absolutely, Meryl. Absolutely. And there's some that have been to an atelier, have taken many art classes, but not at an atelier. So I want to talk about that point really quick too, because a lot of times people come to me and they're like, Mandy, I just don't have it. And I'm like, what are you talking about? Like, I don't have it. I took some art classes and then, my artwork didn't really get better. But here's the problem is that there are very few people that can actually teach you how to draw and paint realistically that are alive today. But there are many art classes run by people that do not have this training and do not have this knowledge. And sometimes students will take a class with an instructor that doesn't have this particular skill set. And when they don't learn that skill set, they think the problem is them, that they just don't have it. But there's no such thing as a talent fairy. And the amazing thing about Atelier Training is that anybody can learn how to draw and paint at high technical levels that goes to Atelier Training. Anybody can learn it. It's like learning how to read or write or play the piano, right? Anybody can learn it. It's just a matter of, do you care enough about it to dedicate your time and mental energy to learning this set of skills? But anybody can learn Atelier Training. Absolutely. Okay, so what is the training like? So often when you go to an atelier, the very first project that you're going to do is called a barg plate. Now, the barg plate is fascinating. If there's any art teachers here in the chat, it's fascinating history of art curricula here. So the idea behind these plates was that they were intended to be copied by students before they came into the atelier. So at the time in the French academies, Jean-Marie Jerome was like the head guy running the art academies in France. And he partnered with this guy, Charles Bark, who was a printmaker. And he was like, I can't stand how bad the students are when they show up to come train in my atelier. And what I want is for them to have a higher level of skills before they even get into my atelier. So I want to create basically a course that we can mail out to the equivalent of all the high schools in France that will teach them how to draw so that by the time they get to me, we can really help them become more advanced, right? So this was really the first national art curricula that I know of that exists in the world that was like funded and created and sent out to public education more or less as it existed in the time. And it's an amazing resource. Some people look at this and they're like, Mandy, I'm going to copy. I want to be a real artist. I don't want to copy, right? But the thing is that copying is the best, most efficient way to learn technical drawing and painting skills from people who know a whole lot more than you do. It's an essential skill. And if you read like the Delacroix diaries or anything else, many artists, almost any artist that has a diary talks incessantly about master copies. In fact, that famous drawing of the Da Vinci painting, like the Battle of Anghiari, I can never pronounce that name. It's the one with the battle scenes and the horses and all the action. That was actually I think it was a Rubens copy of the Da Vinci painting that is now lost. And the only reason we know of it is because of the habit Rubens had of making master copies everywhere he went. So if you really want to learn, master copies are essential, and bark plates are designed for people who aren't used to copying to learn a lot of skills. And so each bark plate was actually created with the intention of teaching students different drawing skills, and different bark plates will actually teach you different aspects of drawing. And it's a wonderful way. If you do nothing else, if you take nothing else away from this workshop, if you just go, if you type in bark plate into YouTube, I have a free course on YouTube about how to do this entire bark plate from beginning to end. And if you do nothing else to pursue atelier training, do a bark plate. It will help you, on your journey more than any other starting place that you can imagine. Okay, and the next thing that you would typically do in an atelier is kind of building on the bark plate. So if you look at the bark plate, this is a drawing of a cast. Casts were really popular to learn from because they were light in value. They showed a lot of forms, so you get a full range of values from very light to really dark. It was also believed that the classic sculptures, the ancient Greek and Roman sculptures, were ideal forms, and so they wanted you to learn good taste by copying what was considered high art of the ancients. Someone's asking how to spell bark plate. Yes, let me put it in the chat. It's called bark plate. And if you just type bark plate into YouTube, you'll see this free course that I did. It has like 30 hours worth of videos on it, and it's totally free. Go watch this class. Okay, but they, they would copy these ancient sculptures. So the natural progression from copying a bark plate, which is 2D to 2D, is to go from 3D to 2D. So this is my very first cast drawing that I ever did in Atelier, where I was looking at an actual cast. This is a cast of the Eye of David, and drawing it. So now you're looking at a real cast, something that's 3D, and taking it to 2D. So it's a way to scaffold the knowledge and the learning. And that's what Atelier Training is so good at doing, is they are teaching you immense amounts of technical drawing and painting knowledge in the most efficient way possible. Oh, Elena says, I love your bark plate course. Thank you. Yeah, thank you. I know a lot of people here, actually a lot of people that are in our boot camp that I'm going to talk about later today, started with the bark plate course, and then be careful. It's very dangerous, because once you learn about Atelier Training, once you start tiptoeing down the path, there's like no going back. You'll never be satisfied knowing that you can be better than you are if you get the training. So it is very dangerous. I give you fair warning. It's amazing what you can learn just with, that one online course, and imagine how much further you can go if you continue to pursue Atelier Training. Okay, so if you go to an atelier, you do the bark plate, you do a cast drawing, and then you'll do like some simple still life. So this is a little drapery study. It was one of the first still life drawings I did in the atelier. So again, you go from bark plate 2D to 2D, cast drawing 3D to 2D, and then something that isn't a cast, in this case, a drapery study. Okay, now the next big jump in Atelier Training happens when you transition from charcoal or pencil to paint. Now, this painting is also of a cast, so it's not so different from the cast drawing, but this is a cast painting done in what's called en grisaille, which means painting in black and white. So the reason Atelier Training has so many French terms is because that was like the center of, when Atelier Training fell out of favor, the last major center of Atelier Training was Paris. And so we have a lot of terms that we still use because the last time Atelier Training was really active and broadly taught, not all, because there was a school in Munich, there's a school in Russia, but the vast majority of Americans were training in the French ateliers. And so the Americans that continued the strain of Atelier Training through the 1940s, 50s, 60s, 70s, and 80s tend to use those French terms. Tony says, I love to draw, and this will improve my drawing. Excited. Yes, it will. All Atelier Training will improve your drawing and your painting, for sure. Okay, so the difference between the drawing and the painting is that most of us have, used a pencil for a large portion of our life. You may remember when you were 5 or 6, your teacher might have corrected how you held a pencil, and you used to like maybe draw really hard, and then you learned how to, be lighter. We learned how to control that particular material. And most humans have a fair amount of experience with using a pencil in some capacity. But most of us, unless we have had Atelier Training before, maybe don't have as much control over paint on a brush, right? So learning paint handling skills is a big jump. So even though when you're going to paint en grisaille, when you're painting in black and white, it's a very similar skill to the cast drawing. What's different is that you have to figure out how to control your paint at the same level that you can control your charcoal. And so what makes cast drawing and grisaille really challenging, the next big challenge, is because your eye is seeing values and shapes pretty well after the drawing parts, but your paint isn't doing what you want it to. And it feels really frustrating because you can see that it's off, but you don't have the experience with paint to quite get it the way you can see that it needs to get done. So the reason that a lot of ateliers will have you do en grisaille, have you paint in black and white, is so that you can start to learn how to master your paint handling, learning how to control the paint in a nuanced way at a similar level to what you can control your charcoal or your pencil. Okay, now this project, some ateliers do and some don't do, but this is called a warm cool painting. So if you go from en grisaille, which is 2 colors, right, black and white, and then all of a sudden you put a full colors down on your palette, that can feel very overwhelming. So some ateliers do this project, which is a warm cool project. Now, even though this painting feels like a full color painting, this painting was actually done with only 3 colors: a burnt sienna, an ultramarine blue, and a white. Okay, so it's the idea behind this project is that if you can control your shifts from warm through neutrals to cool and vice versa, from cool through your neutrals to warm, you can actually get an immense amount of form and make something feel incredibly colorful, even though this is only 3 colors. The other advantage of only 3 colors is that there's less overwhelm for students when working on a limited palette. It's a way to help them start introducing colors and this concept of warm cool without giving you every single color that might eventually end up on your palette and not knowing how to use them. Okay, another part of Atelier training is working from the life, working from figure portraits, figure drawings. I don't include figure drawings in my presentations, the nude figure drawings in my presentations anymore, just because I want to make sure that that students that are attending these or the art teachers that are attending these free workshops can use this training in their own classrooms without prudish concerns. And even though I think the figure is absolutely beautiful, and I think that if humanity had more experience of understanding the beauty of all the forms, everybody has a beautiful figure if you're an artist. And if you don't know how to find the beauty in every figure, then you're doing it wrong. Because it's amazing. And I really wish that the attitudes in society were more open to figure drawing and celebrating the beauty of everybody. But that's a side tangent. Anyways, so you'll also work from life. The difference between working from portraits, like a real person or a real figure in front of you, is that it turns out that unlike a cast drawing, which is literally a sculpture that stays still and hangs on the wall and will not move on you, even the very best models, you're going to get some motion back and forth, some slight change in the head of the tilt. And so what portrait drawing and figure drawing really teach you are how to mentally freeze a pose in your head and be able to recognize when the model's in your pose and when the model has slightly shifted out of your pose. And it creates like a visual memory that you start to learn, because you can't just draw what you see all the time when you're working with a portrait or a figure, because there's these subtle shifts. I've actually had students ask me before to tell the model not to breathe, okay, which is clearly not going to be the case. So it's a huge jump going from working from still life objects that are not going to move to working from living things. Even painting flowers. Flowers will move on you as you paint them, right? And so what working from the figure and portrait really does is it teaches you a visual memory that is super important for artists. Okay. Now I'm covering a whole lot of material, so please feel free to ask any questions you might have in the chat. I'm going to, kind of keep going through, but don't be shy. I'm here to answer your questions about Atelier training, so please don't hesitate to ask them. I know sometimes in a group setting, we might not know each other or whatever, but we all share a love of art or we wouldn't be here. So don't be shy with your questions. Okay, and then of course, doing full color figure painting, and this is a closed model, so this is an example to share with you. The cool thing about having a lot of training in an atelier is your ability to create moods, to control things. Like this painting was supposed to originally be a nude figure painting, but my model showed up and I had this blue background, I had this blue couch, and she was wearing like this perfect harmony of blue. And I'm like, obviously this is a painting about the color blue now. And like, I need her to pose exactly as she's sitting just now. And so the training really allows you a lot of creativity and access to a lot of beauty that maybe you would have missed without the training. This is the previous one I'm getting question is the portrait charcoal. Yes, this is charcoal. This is done with Nitram charcoal, which is a brand of charcoal that I strongly recommend using. I find it to be far superior than most others, and they do not pay me money to say that. I just love them. And then someone else is asking, so it's not on Versailles, it's on grisaille. So it's spelled this way in the chat. So en grisaille means painting in black and white. And I put it in the chat there for you. Okay, so who should go to an atelier? If you want to draw and paint realistically, if you feel really excited right now about learning how to draw and paint, you should probably go to an atelier, right? If you are an art teacher and you have students that are interested in learning to paint realistically or want to make a career out of painting, an atelier is often a way better choice than a traditional college. The majority of traditional colleges do not offer atelier training. There are a few exceptions. In fact, we have a partnership with a university you can find on our website. But if you want atelier training, encourage your students to go to an atelier if that's what they're really interested in doing. And if you want to be a professional painter, ateliers produce top-notch painters, right? It's incredible. And there are so many types of commissions out there for people with these skills. You know, I have friends that are professional portrait painters. I have a friend that had a contract with NASA to paint astronauts for like a period of time, and she made a good living doing that, right? You know, I was you know, painting solely for a living for many years, and I was known for flower paintings, and I painted peonies, like nothing but peonies, for 2 years and made my living painting peonies, like the flowers, right? So you know, I miss teaching, so I went back to sharing and teaching as well as being a painter. But the point is that there are legitimate careers where you can make your living painting with a high skill set, with the skills that you can learn at an atelier. So Elena is asking a really good question. How many hours a day do you have to work to get the right results? So in the atelier, this is an excellent question. So when I just went through there, the drawing, the grisaille painting, the warm cool painting, you know, I trained in full-time in ateliers for more than 5 years. And we're talking 6 to 8 hours a day, every weekday for about 5 years. So that's the level that I got to this. That's the amount of time that I invested to get to this level. Now, that being said, the majority of ateliers require you to be full-time, right? And there's this huge need that I've seen from all the people that I work with running the School of Atelier Arts, that there are people that are ready to train seriously, but they can't quit their jobs, move across the country, go train in atelier full-time for 5 years. And so I'm going to talk about it at the end. That's exactly why I created this atelier painting bootcamp, because I critique people several times a week in this bootcamp, and you're getting the guidance and instruction from an atelier trained person, but you can do it over a longer period of time. So even if you're only devoting, you know, maybe 5 to 10 hours a week to really focusing on learning to draw and paint, over time, you will achieve the results as long as you are training with somebody who knows what they are doing. The biggest mistake I see students make is that they want atelier training, but they don't have enough experience with atelier skills to know whether their teacher has atelier training or not. Because as atelier training becomes more popular, a lot of people are saying, oh yes, I'm atelier trained, when they're not. Okay. So if you want atelier training, you really need to vet your instructors that you are considering and look up the schools that they're claiming to have studied at and make sure that it's a legitimate atelier that they trained in. Okay, so those are the people that should go to an atelier. Okay, and I just want to point out, this is so important to me. Training gives you power. It gives you an immense amount of power. So I want you to look at this drawing right now, because there's a story behind this drawing that I want to share with you. So I was teaching I was working with a group of art teachers a number of years ago, maybe 3 or 4 years ago. And, you know, I had a few students in that class that were like, oh, well, my painting isn't good because I don't have the right brush. Oh, my drawing isn't good because I don't have the right charcoal, or I don't have like the right kneaded eraser, or I don't have the right paper. And it is true that having quality materials will help you learn better because you're not fighting the materials. But that wasn't the problem that these students were having. The problem that they had is that they thought the problem was with their materials, when the reality is that their eye just didn't have the sensitivity. They hadn't trained enough to have the sensitivity in their eye to execute their drawings the way that they saw them in their head, right? There was a disconnect between where their skill set was and what their vision was. And, you know, I was trying to explain this to them, and I was like, it doesn't matter what your material is. What matters is if your eye is trained well. You can draw with anything. You can draw with a freaking crayon if you want to. And they turned to me and they said, okay, Mandy, prove it. So lo and behold, I went out and bought a box of crayons and I did this entire cast drawing. So this is done from observation of a cast. And I did this entire drawing with a Crayola crayon. This was all done in crayon. Technically, it was done with a few dozen crayons. It took me a lot of crayons to cover that much paper. But the point is that if you have atelier training, your materials don't matter. What matters is your eye is trained well. Now, someone's asking me a question, does Nitram charcoal make a difference? Like, it just depends. Like, whatever charcoal you're using, you will learn to adapt and learn how to control, right? The reason I particularly like Nitram is because I have a lot of experience using it, and I feel like I can get it a little bit darker than I can other charcoals. But I can make a legitimate quality drawing with any charcoal that you hand me. It's not the problem isn't the material. The problem is how well is your eye trained? And students often kind of get in the cycle where they blame the materials because it can be frustrating. It's a lot of work to learn atelier training. It's not something that you're like, I'm going to do atelier training for the next 10 minutes, right? You have to really want it, and you have to really put your soul into it and really be willing to go after it. What makes me sad is that sometimes I see students who want it so much, but they don't believe that they can do it. And it makes me so sad for them, because I know that the problem is just that they haven't had access to good information from an instructor that has this training. Like, anybody can learn this. Anybody can learn this training that puts in the time and effort under somebody who knows what they're doing, right? But a lot of people, like I said before, they go and take like a local art class with a very nice art instructor that doesn't have these skills. And then when they don't learn these skills, they feel like, oh, I just don't have it. But that is not what the problem is. The problem is that you need to train with somebody that has atelier training. But that's the problem. It's not you, it's your access to good information. Okay, and here's like a little detail of this drawing. So, you can see you're not going to get like all the nitty-gritty details in there, but if you work with your materials, you can make it look like all the nitty-gritty details are in there if you know what you're about, right? So this is my opus on technical skills matter. You can draw with anything. It's about training your eye. Okay, so training gives you power, and that's the point of that whole story. So if your eye is trained well, you can do magical things with any material. Okay, something else that's kind of fun for students to see and that I like to share with people is, okay, Mandy, you talk a big game, but what was your before and what was your after? Like, how did atelier training change you? How did, your art get better? So I like to include a before and after. So the cast on the left is actually a cast drawing I did with a book that came out on atelier training. And that was my first exposure to atelier training. That's when I first learned about it. And the book had a really good information in it. And this was by far the best drawing that I had ever done up until that point in my life. So this was with reading about atelier training, but not working with an atelier training instructor. That's the one on the left. And then you can see when I started working with an atelier training instructor on the right, what a huge leap forward I could make, right? So there's a big difference between the one on the left and one on the right. The one on the left was when I was just reading about atelier training. The one on the right was when I was working with somebody who was atelier trained that was giving me input on my work. Okay, so here's some questions that I frequently get, and don't be afraid to ask in the chat too if you have additional ones. Okay, so Meryl's saying that she attended an atelier from 10 a.m. to 10 p.m. With 2.5 hours total off for lunch and dinner for almost 3 years for 50 weeks a year. And boy, did you learn. I imagine, if you put the time in, you will learn. Now, some ateliers, they have this demanding structure, like you have to spend 10 hours a day in a studio. But, there's other ways to learn it. It doesn't have to be that. It just has to be the time with an atelier trained instructor, with you putting in an honest effort consistently. So I've worked with students for years that have worked with me on a part-time basis that have made immense gains in their drawing and painting, and probably have worked a similar number of hours over the course of 5 years than they would in full-time, in a couple of years. So it's not that you have to be so intensive about it. It's that the amount of training time matters. So, I used to train in Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, and, like, to go from your white belt to your blue belt is like a lot of work. It often takes like 2 years of going to class a couple times a week, right? But if you were to go every day, maybe you would get your blue belt in 1 year instead of 2. But the people that have their blue belts have the same amount of knowledge, right? So what I'm encouraging people to do is go to any atelier, right? And if you can go to an intensive program, amazing, that's great. The reason I started this boot camp that I'm going to talk to you about in a minute is because a lot of people are begging me for something that would give them some training that wasn't at the same commitment level as an all day, every day, 10-hour a day situation, right? And you'll learn both ways, and you will learn in proportion to the number of hours that you put in. But this boot camp is a way for people that can't quit their jobs and move across the country or move across the world, an opportunity to really work and get serious training and serious knowledge. So another question that I get a lot is, do you have to be good already to go to an atelier? And the answer is no, absolutely not. As an atelier trained person, it's my job to help you be good. If you came in already knowing these skills, what's the freaking point, right? So you don't have to have any skills coming in. And sometimes it's actually an advantage if you don't have much experience with art coming in, because, for me, I did a lot of self-teaching before I went to an atelier, and I had developed a lot of bad habits that I had to unlearn. And I found that some of my classmates that had way less experience in art than me, at the beginning at least, were progressing faster than me because they didn't have to unlearn anything the way I did, right? So no, you don't have to be good already to go to an atelier. Atelier training can be super intimidating to people sometimes. They'll look at an atelier trained painting and be like, oh, I could never do that. But if you've learned anything in this workshop, I hope it's that you understand that, no one bops you on the head. There's no talent fairy. That it's just that some people have had access to knowledge and training, and you maybe did not have access to that yet. But now you know about it. Now you know how to have access to it. And if you want it, you can have it. Like, it's there for the taking. Okay, another question I get, and this one often comes especially from art teachers who are afraid of ruining like their students' creativity. So will atelier training ruin your creativity? My answer to that is absolutely not. I believe that all students should be able to make the artwork that's in their heads and in their hearts without compromise. And often I find that students are struggling because they can't execute their ideas the way they intend them, and then they get frustrated and quit art, right? I believe that the most creative students are the ones that have the most choices. And when you have training, it gives you way more choices about the kind of art that you want to create. I can still make an abstract painting if that's what my heart desires, but someone that only knows how to do abstract painting is not going to be able to teach you how to draw and paint realistically. And if they suddenly wanted to create a realistic artwork, they're going to really struggle with it. Whereas somebody that has atelier training, they have the most choices. Okay, and how do I find an atelier? Well, lucky for you, you already have. You found an atelier right now. You are communicating with me, an atelier trained person who runs an atelier. And there's also many ateliers across the country. Like I was saying, I quit my job to train full-time in an atelier. Now that you know what the word is, you can type atelier into your favorite search engine, and there's a lot of opportunities that will pop up for you. However, it's really important that you vet these very carefully because, as I said before, atelier training is becoming a popular buzzword, but there are many people claiming atelier training that don't actually have the skills to back it up. So definitely look up the artist's work and make sure that you feel confident that they have the skills that you're looking for, right? Okay, so how can I start learning today? Well, you guys are learning right now. Understanding what the process is the start of your atelier journey. So whether you think you're ready to start atelier training or not, you actually have already started. You are starting right now. You've been starting for the last 45 minutes. You're getting some form of atelier training right now. But there's additional things that you can do with atelier training. So some of you, I had mentioned before, doing the bark plate class. That's BARGUE, BARG. Plate class on YouTube. It's a free class I have up there. Many of you are on my mailing list. I send out free lesson plans and all sorts of other goodies through the mailing list. Obviously, these free workshops to help you. We're doing a workshop tomorrow and Saturday and Sunday. So that's another way to get Atelier training. And we also have our Atelier Bootcamp that we have just launched starting this year. So I'm going to talk a little bit about what this bootcamp is, how it works, how do we train people in Atelier training. Okay, so here's what we teach you in the bootcamp. So we'll teach you how to set up a studio the right way. So again, there's things that if you know them will make it so much easier for you to draw and paint. If you have your easel set up in a way where your arm is casting a shadow on your painting and you're trying to paint it, it's going to be a much more frustrating experience for you than if you have your light coming from the opposite direction of where your arm is, right? So there's a number of little things that can help you focus on learning the Atelier skills, which take a lot of focus without distracting you with things that don't need to be a problem in your life. Okay, so we're going to teach you how to master your materials. Like, what paint do you need? How do you mix your paint? How do you prep your palette the right way? How do you hold your palette? Do you know that there's a right side up and an upside down on your palette? And it's much more comfortable to hold it one way than the other way. And most students have no idea which way is upside up or upside down, right? So we cover all of the materials in depth to make sure that you understand what your materials are doing to help keep you and your studio safe. We don't want anybody crumpling up an oil-soaked rag and accidentally catching your studio on fire. That's a real thing that happens. So making sure that you have best practices, giving you ideas if you're an art teacher, like how to teach oil painting safely in your classroom and financially efficiently in your classroom, because we know that that's a concern. So this boot camp is, I'm getting questions. We use strictly oils in the boot camp. However, if you are a watercolor painter, if you're an acrylic painter, many of the same concepts will apply to you. However, if you do choose to sign up for the boot camp, I strongly encourage you to try oil painting because there are many things that we teach in the atelier that are easier to learn in oils than they are in watercolor, right? Or acrylic paint. The big problem with acrylic paint is it dries so quickly. So if you are an acrylic painter and you use what's called open acrylics, or you put an extender in your paint that allows it to stay wet for a much longer period of time, then it can work for you that way. But I strongly encourage you, even if you don't think you're an oil painter, if you want to learn how to oil paint, or if you want to learn atelier skills, learn it in oil paint and then take what you've learned and apply it to your favorite medium. So if you just love watercolors, like that's fine. Everything you learn painting in oils will apply. Everything you learn about color theory, everything you learn about form, everything you learn about how, to draw and keep your drawing while you're painting, and all of these atelier skills, you'll be able to apply them to other media. Just like I applied my drawing skills to crayon, right? It didn't matter that it was crayon. But that being said, for the ease of use of learning along in this bootcamp, I would strongly encourage you to try oils. I'm getting a request for a recording. Yes, there will be recordings that are sent out after the end of this workshop series. So there'll be another opportunity if you're having difficulties. Okay, so also we're going to teach you good painting techniques, because there are good painting techniques and there are really bad painting techniques. And there are like some painting techniques that require a lot of chemicals and other things that are not good for you. And the method that I teach in this boot camp is very streamlined and it's very classroom friendly. So we use a small number of pigments to keep the cost down. We do not put additives in our paint ever I shouldn't say ever, with the exception of if we're drawing in paint. That's the only time we'll ever thin our paint. Otherwise, there's no additives in the paint, because a lot of the additives have chemicals and there's difficulties with school districts and everything else. And also, I'm trying to simplify the process. I want you to be learning how to draw and paint, not getting wrapped up in this material and that special material and this special thing and that special thing. Like, what I want is a streamlined process for you to learn efficiently and learn how to see better, because that's what learning how to draw and paint really is. It's learning how to see better. Okay, and my favorite picture, stop getting stuck, right? So if you're tired of starting drawing some paintings and then like getting stuck partway through and not knowing what to do next, Atelier Training is what you need. And having an Atelier trained person, again, I give critiques twice a week. You know, people come in, they come into the class. You get to learn from others. You get, a critique just for you, and it helps you, avoid mistakes and common pitfalls that students fall down, and also keeps you from getting stuck. Like, you can keep moving forward, you keep learning and growing because you have a coach right there with you to help you. So just like those drawings I showed you earlier, I read a lot about Atelier Training when I did that drawing on the left of that eye. And then the difference of having the coaching and the feedback and the critiques of an Atelier trained instructor, it's a whole different ballgame, right? And so if you're serious about improving your realism skills, if you are serious about Atelier Training, you need coaching from an Atelier trained artist, whether that's me or anybody else in your community that you can find that's local. But again, please vet very carefully. There are not many Atelier trained people that exist in the world. Most of the ateliers that are training people right now, they're training classes of like 20, 30 at most, right? So there are not very many people in the world that have this knowledge. So please be judicious when you're trying to find an instructor to work with. Okay, and again, with the boot camp, you're going to learn with me and also your atelier friends, right? So I don't know if any of you have ever experienced this, but like, you really want to do something, but sometimes you struggle with your motivation, or like, that's why people have walking groups or exercise groups, right? Because it gives you some accountability and you can make friends that are trying to do the same thing that you are trying to do. And so in our boot camp, we really, strive to build a community in our class platform. So we have a special class platform, and I'll show you a picture of it here in a minute, but you can chat with your classmates. You can, let's say you can't make it to the live critiques, you can post your image in the written critique stage and get a critique from an Atelier trained artist, on your post. So if you think of your favorite social media site, it's like that, except without any advertising and all about art and Atelier training. Okay. So what's the investment? Our Atelier Bootcamp, you can come to our bootcamp for only $500 a month. And this is an amazing price. I spent tens and tens and tens of thousands of dollars pursuing my Atelier training, and, quitting my job and moving across the country and waitressing to make ends meet, So, you can learn these skills in your home with some dedication and with a community of like-minded people. So what do you get for $500 a month? Well, you get a critique 2 times a week, in the Atelier Bootcamp. And in addition to that, you can get written critiques if you post it in our, posting area in the online class. I have 15 extensive videos. Those of you who have taken my bark plate class online on YouTube, you know how thorough my lessons are and how complete. Like, we cover everything and we break it down into really tiny chunks of information so that you always know what to do. So if you found that you like my teaching style, you will love, for those drawing class, you will love my teaching style for this painting class. We also include all the things that you need. So instead of having you go find your own master copies and things like that, the very first lesson you will do in the boot camp is a painted master copy. There's a lot of reasons to do that. One is that it allows you to focus on painting without having the distraction of drawing. If you don't have a lot of experience in drawing, but you want to jump into painting, it helps you learn your color theory, it helps you with your paint handling, et cetera, et cetera. Now, that being said, I have a student that, did like 3 or 4 master copies, and now she's out there painting in the world and she's getting critiques on other projects, right? But I want everybody who joins this bootcamp to do at least 1 master copy with me in order to make sure that you have the language, that you understand the process, that you have a process for painting, that you understand the words that I'm using, because there's a lot of words that are used in an atelier setting that have a very specific meaning. And it's really important that when I'm communicating with you in a critique, that you understand what it is that I'm saying to you. Okay, and then also really thorough instructions on how to set up your studio, how to print your master copies, exactly which art supplies that you should be getting with links so that you can get exactly the right art supplies that I'm using in my demonstration, so that you don't have any of that disconnect between, oh, I don't have that color paint, or I don't have the right palette, or whatever. everything that I use in those videos, there's a direct link in the supply list to make sure that you can have exactly what I have to make it just a really streamlined process. Okay, here's a picture of what the inside of the course looks like. So, we have all the videos under the course materials. We have written critiques where you can post things. You can post your paintings in progress and be like, why does this look funny? Or I'm struggling getting this bright enough, or whatever you're struggling with in the moment, you can post it in real time and get some advice on. We have live critiques twice a week. We also record all the critiques. So let's say you missed the critique, but want to learn from what your classmates were doing that day. All the critiques are added to the video library. So you can go back and watch them and learn from your friends. You can also chat in the group chat, or you can chat individually. Like, let's say, you're in a critique and you really like Lisa and the way she talks, and, you want to be her friend. Like, you can reach out to her. It also has a feature where if you choose to enable it when you make your account, it'll allow you to find people in the class that live near you, so that if you wanted to meet up in a real life situation and talk, you can do that too. I've really found that the people that are learning the most in ateliers are the ones that are doing it in a community, right? The ones that are trying to do it one-on-one, they struggle to maintain the discipline. The ones that really want it, that are coming to critiques regularly, that know that a scheduled critique is there, that they need to show up for, and they want to have something to show in the critique, and that they know their friend's going to have something to show in the critique, and they know that if they don't come to the critique, their friend is going to be like, hey, what's up with you not coming to the critique, right? That really building that community is a big part of successful learning. I know that as a licensed art teacher. I know that from, many years of experience working and teaching atelier skills to adults as well. Okay, so this is what you get. This is, the ongoing class. So you can come for a month. I'll go ahead. I'm going to pop up a little link here. So if you click on this link, this page that I'll take you to gives you even more information, like pages and pages of information, lots of questions and answers on there. So I really encourage you, if you're curious, to check it out. If you're ready, like, let's go. Like, you want to show up to my critique that I'm having next Monday, then sign up for the class and we'll see you there. I have limited spots in this workshop. I already have quite a few students in the class. I'm not going to take on more students than I feel that I can give the very best education to. So this is a brand new program. We just opened it. It's a really great opportunity if you're serious about atelier skills, and if you're ready to take yourself seriously. Like, if you want to learn how to draw and paint, and you are not going to move across the country and quit your job to train in an atelier full time, this is your next best option. And it's a really great option because you're going to be learning just an insane amount of information in this boot camp. Like, we are in the business of changing people's art lives, right? So I really hope that you'll join us. Okay, so I promised at the beginning. Oh, so when you click on that button, so it'll take you to a page. So if you want to sign up, just say, yes, I want to learn this. It'll ask you to create an account. This is the account for our online learning software where we offer the class. And then it'll let you purchase the bootcamp from there. So those are the 3 steps if you want to enroll in our bootcamp. Okay, I promised at the beginning that I would leave time for as many questions as you have. So Elena's asking, how many months is the bootcamp? So it's ongoing, Elena. So let's say you have 3 months where you can really work, but then, like, okay, the summer's coming and your kids are home from school and you really can't work in the summer, you can take off a few months and then just come back. I tried to make it like a gym membership, right? So, like, use it as you go. Like, maybe you're just like really focused and making a lot of progress, and you stay, for 2 years and really learn, everything that you wanted to learn. So it's a month-to-month program. You can join or leave at any month. We also have a 30-day money-back guarantee. So even if you're like not sure if this is something, you can come train for a month for free if you ask your money back at the end and decide it's not worth it, right? So we have that 30-day money-back guarantee. So even if you're not sure, like, try it, see what you think. We try to make it as accessible as possible, but we also want people who are serious about learning. I think it's really, really important that if you want atelier training, you really need to invest in yourself, and not just mentally, emotionally, but financially. Like, you're committing. When people put their money on the line, when they're ready to pay for a workshop, they do the work, right? And that's what I want. I want serious people. And you don't have to know anything about Atelier training coming into this, but if you're willing to work hard and take it seriously, you're who I want in this class. Okay, so Emily's saying that I really want to do this, but I can't until I finish a project. Will I be able to start in the spring of 2024? Possibly. It depends on how full the class is. Again, I'm not going to take more students than I feel that I can give the very best training to. And, we have quite a few students signed up already. I don't know what our registration is going to look like in the spring. So hopefully we'll have space for you then, Emily. But definitely reach out when you're ready, in the spring. So it's up to you. Okay. So I know that I missed a few questions, so I'm going back. Okay, so Eve's asking, if you join and leave temporarily, do you still have access to the course material? And when you rejoin, do you have to start over? These are really good questions. So the videos stay in the class. So you cannot take the video instruction with you, and you won't have access to the critiques when you're not enrolled in the class. However, all the downloads are accessible to you. So we have PowerPoints for each of the videos in there that kind of give an outline. Those are downloadable for you. So you can have, some resources, on your downtime, like let's say you join for a month and then have to take a couple months off and then come back. And then, yes, you can absolutely, let's say you go for 3 months and then you need to take some time off and then you come back, you can absolutely pick up right where you left off. So, the critiques are there for you. Whatever you've been working on is what gets critiqued. Let's say you get halfway through a master copy painting. When you come back, you can start with the other half of your master copy painting. So it's really individualized instructions. So it's like each of you are on your own journey in your own journey of painting and are going to kind of progress at your own pace. But the critiques will be there. You'll get to hear everybody's critiques. Wherever you are is where I'm going to help you, so let's say you have like the first stage of a painting done. That's like, I'm not going to critique you on the third stage. I'm going to critique you where you are and help you get to the next level. Absolutely, Eve, you're quite welcome. Okay, so do we have any other questions about the bootcamp or about Atelier training generally? This is your time. I'm here for you. Again, we have free classes again tomorrow at noon Eastern Standard Time. Saturday, I should double check because some of you may have seen my email. I messed up this morning and sent the wrong class time out this morning. So my apologies to you. So let me just make sure that I'm telling you the correct ones. So Saz is asking how many can join the bootcamp. So I haven't capped it yet because I'm waiting to figure out, because this is new for me. I'm waiting to figure out how many people are showing up to critiques. Can I critique everybody? Can I get through everything? So I don't have a hard number, but I'm at about 50% of what I think is my number right now. So I'm at about 50% full. And we've only been open for a few days. So that's where we are. Okay. Are there any other questions for me about Atelier training, about the boot camp, generalized art questions? Okay, my friends. Well, I hope that I will get to see all of you again tomorrow for our class. Geraldine is saying, thanks for being so thorough with your explanations. Very happy to be, Geraldine. I'm an art teacher by training, so I try to, make sure that I'm explaining everything as clearly as possible. So Saz is asking, what's one tip for starting art? Take that bark plate course, Saz. The BARGUE on YouTube. Start there. If you don't have anywhere else to start, or if you don't have the money to start the boot camp, go take that bark plate class. Thank you so much, everybody. It's such a pleasure to work with all of you. Eve says, yep, you're definitely a teacher. Just wait until I start wearing my pencil earrings, Oh, Okay, thank you, everybody. I'm so grateful that you're here to learn, and I love just being with a group of people that love art the way that I love art. So it's a pleasure being here with all of you. Yes, Saz, it's on a former YouTube channel. It's on the Da Vinci Initiative YouTube channel. So I used to run the Da Vinci Initiative before I ran the School of Atelier Arts. So it's one that I made a few years ago. Okay, thanks, Annette. All right, everybody. Happy trails to you. Happy art making to all of you.